The tournament started normally enough. Charlie Woods arrived with his usual composed demeanor, went through his practice routine, and seemed ready for another solid performance. The expectations were reasonable. Top 10 finish, maybe top 5 if things went well. Nobody was predicting fireworks, but everyone expected competent, steady golf from the kid who'd been trained by one of the greatest to ever play the game. The kind of golf that wins junior tournaments through consistency, patience, and smart course management. Then the first round began, and immediately something felt different. Charlie's pre-shot routine, usually methodical and measured like clockwork, seemed faster, almost rushed. His club selection was raising eyebrows among those paying close attention. On the second hole, a straightforward par 4 where conventional wisdom says you lay up safely and take your par, Charlie pulled out his driver and went for a line that most professionals would consider unnecessarily aggressive for an opening round. The commentators chuckled nervously. Bold choice for a young player, one said. Perhaps feeling some pressure to make a statement early, suggested another, but Charlie wasn't done. Hole after hole, he was making decisions that seemed to contradict everything anyone knew about percentage golf, about playing the odds, about the conservative approach that usually wins tournaments. This wasn't just aggressive golf, this was something else entirely, and nobody could quite figure out what they were watching. Here's where it gets really interesting, where the performance shifted from unusual to absolutely shocking. The back 9 didn't bring a surge, correction, or a return to conventional play. If anything, Charlie doubled down on the aggression. On the 13th, facing a 220-yard approach over water to a tucked pin, the safe play was obvious to everyone watching. Layup. Take your par. Move on. Every caddy in America would have handed their player a wedge for that shot and told them to play smart. But Charlie asked for his 3-wood. His caddy reportedly hesitated, started to say something, then just handed him the club. What happened next had jaws dropping across every clubhouse and sports bar showing the tournament. Charlie took his stance, and with absolute commitment, pure conviction in every fiber of his being, he swung. The ball launched on a trajectory that seemed impossible, fighting against wind and physics and common sense. For a moment, it looked like disaster. The ball appeared to be drifting toward the water, and you could almost hear the collective intake of breath from everyone watching. Then something remarkable happened. The ball caught an updraft, rode it perfectly, and landed on the green, rolling to within 15 feet of the cup. The gallery went absolutely wild, but the golf purists, they were conflicted. Yes, it was an incredible shot, but was it smart? Was it sustainable? Was this the kind of golf that wins tournaments? Or was this a highlight reel wrapped around a ticking time bomb of eventual disaster? Charlie's demeanor through all of this was perhaps the most shocking element of the entire round. There was no visible stress, no second guessing, no apparent concern about what anyone thought. He moved from shot to shot with purpose, making aggressive choices that seemed to come from some internal compass that only he could see. It was almost as if he'd decided to play a completely different game than everyone else on the course, operating by rules that existed only in his own head. The 15th hole brought the moment that has already been memed and turned into 1,000 hot takes across golf social media. A drivable par 4, but with trouble everywhere. Bunkers left, water right, and a green that's notoriously difficult to hold even with a short iron. The conventional play, the play that every golf instructor in the world teaches, is to hit an iron off the tee, leave yourself a comfortable wedge distance, and take your birdie chance from there. Safe, smart, percentage golf. Charlie pulled out his driver again. His playing partners exchanged glances. The crowd murmured nervously. Even the announcers went silent for a moment, as if they couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. And then Charlie slightly unleashed a drive that was simultaneously brilliant and terrifying. The ball flew on a thread, barely clearing the bunkers, flirting with disaster on every inch of its flight path before landing softly on the front of the green and rolling to within birdie range. The social media reaction was instant and completely divided. One camp celebrated the fearlessness, the confidence, the refusal to play scared. This is what golf needs, they declared. A young player who isn't afraid to attack, who plays with his heart on his sleeve, who brings excitement back to a sport that's become too conservative and calculated. The other camp was equally vocal in their criticism. Reckless, they said. Unsustainable. He's going to crash and burn playing like this. Someone needs to rein him in before he ruins his career with this kind of approach. But here's what made this performance truly shocking and what nobody could argue with. It kept working. Not every shot was perfect. Not every gamble paid off. But Charlie maintained a level of execution that made his aggressive strategy viable and competitive. He was living on the edge, playing golf that looked reckless on paper but somehow worked in reality. And as the round progressed, you could see a transformation happening not just in his game, but in the narrative surrounding him. By the time Charlie finished his round, the golf world was in complete chaos trying to process what they'd witnessed. His score was competitive, good enough to keep him in contention, but that almost felt secondary to the larger question hanging over everything. What had everyone just watched? Was this a kid rebelling against the conservative approach he'd been taught? Was it a calculated strategy to separate himself from the pack? Was it pressure manifesting in unexpected ways? Or was this simply Charlie Woods announcing to the world that he was going to play golf his way, consequences be damned? Golf analysts immediately began comparing this performance to pivotal moments in the careers of other greats. Some drew parallels to young Phil Mickelson's aggressive style that eventually won him majors and made him one of the most exciting players to watch. Others compared it to players who flamed out trying to do too much, who let ego and emotion override smart course management and destroyed promising careers. The debate raged on every sports network, every golf podcast, every corner of the internet where people discussed the game. But perhaps the most shocking element wasn't what happened on the course. It was the conversation this performance sparked about pressure, expectations, and identity. For years, Charlie Woods has existed in this impossible space between being his own person and being Tiger Woods' son. Every swing has been compared. Every decision has been analyzed through the lens of his father's legacy. Every tournament result gets measured against impossible standards that no teenager should have to carry. And maybe, just maybe, what we witnessed wasn't recklessness or strategy or pressure cracking. Maybe it was simply a young man declaring his independence in the only language he knows, golf. Think about the psychological weight Charlie has carried since childhood. Imagine being constantly measured against arguably the greatest golfer of all time, not by strangers alone, but by your own bloodline. Imagine every coach, every analyst, every fan having an opinion about how you should play, what you should do, who you should become. The question now isn't whether Charlie played well or poorly. The question is what this means for his future. Will he continue down this aggressive path? Will coaches and advisors pull him back toward conventional approaches? Will this moment be remembered as the turning point where Charlie Woods found his identity? Or will it be a cautionary tale about a talented kid who self-destructed trying to prove a point? Nobody knows the answers yet, but one thing is absolutely certain. Charlie Woods just delivered the most shocking, most debated, most analyzed performance in recent junior golf history. And whether you think he's a genius or reckless, whether you loved it or hated it, you can't deny that he's got everyone's attention. The kid who's lived in the shadow of greatness just stepped into his own spotlight, and the golf world will never look at Charlie Woods quite the same way again. Teenager, this would be career-changing. For the son of Tiger Woods, it meant stepping into a spotlight that had been waiting for him since the day he first picked up a club. Tournament directors took notice, invitations to elite championships started coming in, and fans began to speculate about what could come next. And yet, beyond the numbers, beyond the trophies, the real story was in the atmosphere. Crowds followed every hole, media lined up for quotes, and fellow players felt the weight of his presence. In one weekend, Charlie didn't just win a title, he shifted the narrative. For years, the question was if he could ever emerge from his father's shadow. Now, after this breakthrough performance, the golf world had its answer. The celebration had barely settled when another voice entered the conversation. And it wasn't just any voice. It was Jack Nicklaus, the Golden Bear himself, a man who knows more than most about what it means to dominate golf and live under the relentless eye of the public. Where others were cheering, Nicklaus brought something different, a warning. His words didn't come from cynicism or doubt, but from a lifetime of experience watching the game, the fame, and the weight that comes with both. The road ahead is tough, Nicklaus cautioned. He wasn't talking about competition alone, he meant the invisible battles, the kind that can't be measured on a scorecard. For the child of a sporting icon, the journey is never just about skill. It's about enduring constant comparisons, impossible expectations, and a spotlight that never fades. These challenges, Nicklaus knows, can break even the most talented young athletes if they aren't prepared. Nicklaus's warning wasn't abstract. It came from a deeply personal place. Decades earlier, his own son Gary was thrust into fame at just 16, plastered on the cover of Sports Illustrated with the bold label, "The Next Nicklaus." Instead of launching a legendary career, That moment became a turning point, and not for the better. The pressure, the endless attention, the sense that every swing was under scrutiny, it all became too much. Gary eventually stepped away from the competitive grind, proof that talent alone doesn't protect you from the weight of expectation. That's why Nicklaus sees Charlie's moment as both inspiring and dangerous. The victory shows his potential, the attention shows the challenge ahead, and in today's era where social media amplifies every highlight, every mistake, and every opinion, the intensity is magnified beyond what Gary ever faced. Charlie's rise is undeniable, but so is the spotlight. Nicklaus's words are both a caution and a gift, a reminder that the path to greatness isn't just walked with a golf club, but with resilience. In golf, pressure can be invisible, but for Charlie Woods, it's impossible to ignore. Every swing he takes, every putt he makes is watched, recorded, and compared to one of the greatest players in history, his father. And father noun? For most juniors, the gallery might include parents and a handful of friends. For Charlie, it's a wall of cameras, reporters, and fans all waiting to see if he's the next Tiger. That expectation doesn't just follow him, it surrounds him. In the modern era, the spotlight burns hotter than ever. When Gary Nicklaus faced pressure in the 82nd, the media cycle had pauses. There were breaks between tournaments, moments to breathe. Today, the coverage is constant, fueled by social media feeds, viral clips, and instant commentary from millions of voices online. One great shot can trend worldwide in minutes. One bad round can do the same. There's no place to hide, and no chance to quietly develop in the shadows. Nicklaus himself has acknowledged that this is an entirely new battlefield. He's quick to praise Charlie's beautiful golf swing and poise under pressure, but he also questions whether the teenager can truly grasp the magnitude of what's ahead. It's not just about hitting fairways, it's about learning to navigate an environment where critics, comparisons, and expectations never rest. The mental game now extends far beyond the golf course. The irony is that Charlie's own success fuels the very challenge he must overcome. The more he wins, the bigger the headlines. The bigger the headlines, the greater the scrutiny. It's a cycle that can inspire or exhaust, depending on how it's managed. For Charlie, mastering his craft will be only half the battle. The other half will be building the mental resilience to carry the Woods name without letting it crush him. And in the eyes of those who've walked this path before, that might be the greatest test of all. For Tiger Woods, this isn't just about raising a champion, it's about raising his son. He knows better than anyone how unforgiving the world of golf can be, how quickly praise can turn into criticism, and how the demands of the game can consume every part of a life. That's why, even in the glow of Charlie's victory, Tiger's message has stayed consistent. Let Charlie find his own way. Winning is important, but loving the game is essential. Tiger's role is a delicate balancing act. He's a mentor with unmatched experience, but also a father who understands the risks of pushing too hard too soon. Instead of chasing every tournament, Tiger carefully chooses where Charlie competes, weighing the challenge of the field against the